In reality, all BI semantic models use partitions. If we design a BI semantic model using Power Pivot for Excel, we actually are creating a partition, but our model is limited to just one partition per table. So for any of the tables in our solution, like geography, if we click on this button called partitions, it will actually show us that our geography table has one partition with 674 rows, takes up 3 kilobytes on disk, and when it was last processed. Normally, when we talk about partitioning our model, we're looking at very large tables like this one that has 3.4 million rows, the sales table. And if I look at the partitions, by default, I only have one, and it's the select everything from the fact sales table. Let's take a look at how long it takes to process this model when it only has one partition per table, as it does now. So I'm going to deploy that to the server and close, and then I'll go over to the database and take a look at where my table is, and I'm going to start a process on these. Now I'm going to force them to process full, all tables, and as I do that, I'm going to start a timer. Now I'll fast forward this so you don't have to watch the whole thing. Go ahead and process everything. Okay, our process is complete, and this is a small sample data set with 3.4 million rows in the largest table, so it's not really that big, but it took a minute 19 to process, and that might be okay for now, but what is that going to be like months in the future? You know, that time is just going to get longer and longer because we're processing rows that really maybe haven't changed. And we'd like a little bit more efficient way to go about this. So we'll use partitions to achieve that efficiency. So let's talk about what is a partition. First, here's what we have right now. We have a single partition that has all of our data. And no matter what year, what month, it's all in one partition. And let's say that in our real data, we had about 100 million rows of records in each month. So January had 100 million, February had 100 million. For these 6 months, we'd have 600 million rows. And if we reprocessed this data model every day, we'd be loading 600 million rows a day into the data model. Partitions let us get more efficient than that. So here's our single partition solution. But what if we were able to split things up so that we had one file per month, or one partition per month, and we only processed the most recent month because we knew that once data is loaded at the end of the month, our month end closes and it never changes again. We don't need to reload it. We could reduce the amount of processing we do from 600 rows a day to 100 rows a day. And partitioning is very flexible. So if we wanted to have one partition per day for that last month, we could reduce that even more. So let's partition our database by year. Currently, we know that we have data in this database from 2007, 2008, and 2009, and all of that adds up to 3.4 million rows. So what we're going to do is partition this into 3 partitions instead of only 1. So to do that, we'll go back to our SQL Data Tools, and I'm going to put this right in the design. And if I click on the partition button, I can see I have one partition with 3.4 million rows. What I'm going to do is change this to be this first partition to include only the first year. (2007). There we go. And we'll validate that. It says the statement is valid. So now we have one partition that should only include 1 year of data. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that, and then I'll copy it 2 more times. This one will be 2008, and this one will be 2009. So what I'm doing is I'm essentially splitting this problem up. So I'll have a 2009 partition, a 2008 partition, a 2007 partition. If I wanted to have 50 partitions and split it up even more, I could do that. But for our purposes today, this is fine. So I'll save that, deploy the project again. That will overwrite the design. Close. Now if I want to look at the structure of what I have, I can right-click on that table, click Partitions, and it will tell me that I have 3 partitions. Now currently the first partition is still here. It has a different name now, I gave it, but this has that many rows in it. What I'm going to do is go ahead and process these 3 partitions so that each of them has only the subset. Okay, my processing is complete, and processing all 3 partitions took around the same amount of time, so it really didn't help me that much. It processed each partition one after another, read the same 3.4 million rows, didn't really make a lot of difference in the initial processing. The efficiency gain we'll get is when we are on a daily basis reprocessing only that most recent partition. So let's take a look at what is our time to process only that most recent data that has actually changed. And that process is complete, 24.5 seconds. So we've cut our daily processing window down from about 1:19 to 24. Not a big difference in this number of rows, but if you extrapolate that out to a real production load, we can now process in 1/3 of the time than we were before. That's a significant change in efficiency.